Why did you never tell me this? Why did you hide this from me for so long? And now my mom is dead and I cannot even talk to her, I yelled, my voice shaking as I stared at him. My dad sat silently in the driver's seat, his hands gripping the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles pale. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. The car was parked on a quiet street, the hum of the engine the only sound breaking the tension. My chest heaved as I tried to make sense of what he'd just told me. It felt like the ground beneath me had crumbled. My name is Hannah, and I just turned 18. It was supposed to be a good day, a celebration, maybe even a fresh start. Instead, I was sitting in a car with my dad, unraveling secrets I never knew existed. This road trip from Seattle to San Francisco started with laughter, shared stories, and miles of open road. But now, here we were, parked in front of a house I'd never seen before, my world flipped upside down. The trip had seemed like such a good idea at first. When my dad handed me the map and keys that morning, I thought maybe this was his way of finally reconnecting with me. After my mom died 2 years ago, he'd been trying. Awkward dinners, small talk about school, the occasional compliment, but nothing like this. A road trip? Just the two of us? It felt so out of character for him that I almost said no, but something about the look in his eyes made me agree. He seemed hopeful, maybe even desperate. The first few hours on the road were nice. We talked about my favorite songs, places we wanted to stop, even a little about my mom. He kept bringing her up, more than he usually did, and while it hurt, it was also comforting in a strange way. But as the miles passed, the conversations got heavier. He started apologizing, over and over, about how he used to treat me, about things he regretted, about how much he wished he'd done things differently. At first, I thought it was just his grief talking, but the closer we got to San Francisco, the more unsettled I felt. Something was coming. I could feel it. The first night, we stopped at a small roadside motel. It wasn't much, just a bed, a heater that barely worked, and a vending machine humming outside our window. We grabbed dinner at a diner nearby, and I could tell he was trying to keep things light. But there was something in his eyes, a weight he couldn't quite hide. "You okay, Dad?" I asked as we sat across from each other, the fluorescent lights making the place feel colder than it was. He hesitated, his fork halfway to his mouth. "Yeah," he said, but his voice didn't match his words. He cleared his throat and forced a smile. "Just tired, that's all. It's been a long day." I nodded, but deep down I didn't believe him. There was something he wasn't telling me, and it was starting to feel like this trip was more than just a birthday celebration. As we walked back to the motel, I caught him glancing at me a few times, like he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. I didn't push him. Not yet. Back in the motel room, I kicked off my shoes and sat on the edge of the bed, watching as Dad pulled his jacket off and hung it over the back of a chair. The silence stretched between us, broken only by the faint hum of the heater. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. "Dad," I said, my voice softer this time. "Why do I feel like there's something you're not telling me?" He stopped, his back to me, and sighed deeply. "It's not the right time, Hannah," he said, shaking his head. "We'll talk when we get to San Francisco." He turned toward me, his expression a mix of hesitation and something that looked like fear. "Why not now?" I pressed. "We're here, just us. If there's something you need to say it." He rubbed his face with his hands, sitting down heavily in the chair. "It's complicated," he finally said. "I've made mistakes, Hannah. Big ones. Things I regret. Things I can't change." He looked up at me, his eyes full of something I couldn't quite place. "Your mom always knew how to fix things, how to make things better. I didn't. And when she was gone, I didn't know how to be what you needed." I leaned forward, my heart pounding. "What are you talking about? You've been trying. I mean, things haven't been perfect, but I see you've been trying. Why are you being so hard on yourself?" He let out a bitter laugh. "Trying isn't enough, not after everything. I wish I could go back, do things differently. I was so caught up in my own pain, my own failures, that He trailed off, looking down at his hands. I don't want you to think I didn't love you, Hannah. I did. Your mom and I both did. But there were days I didn't know how to show it. I sat back, stunned by the raw honesty in his voice. Dad, I said quietly, I don't know what to say. He looked at me, a sad smile playing on his lips. You don't have to say anything, kiddo. Just know that everything I've done on this trip, everything I'm going to tell you, is because I want to make things right. That night, as the room grew quiet and my dad's steady breathing signaled he'd fallen asleep, I lay awake staring at the cracked ceiling. My mind wandered back to my childhood, to all the moments that still stung no matter how much time had passed. My dad wasn't always cruel, but he was always distant, like I was a responsibility he couldn't quite figure out how to handle. I thought about the times my dad yelled, over spilled milk, forgotten chores, or grades that weren't perfect enough. The harshness in his voice had been like a slap, leaving me small and uncertain, even when my mom would step in to soothe things. There were the disagreements that spiraled into full-blown arguments, his frustration with me palpable, though I never really understood why. I tried to remember moments of warmth between us, but they were few and far between. My mom had been my anchor through it all, the one who told me I was enough, the one who loved me without conditions. Without her, it was like I was navigating a storm alone. My mom was everything my dad wasn't. She had this way of making every moment feel special, like the world stopped when she looked at me. Her hugs could erase any bad day, and her laughter was the kind that filled the whole room. She never raised her voice, not once, even when I messed up. Instead, she'd sit with me, talk things through, and make me feel like I mattered. Losing her felt like losing the sun. Nothing's been as warm or bright since. Thinking of her calmed me down, and I felt asleep. The next morning, to find my dad sitting by the motel window, staring out at the parking lot. His shoulders were slumped, and the lines on his face seemed deeper in the soft morning light. When he noticed I was awake, he turned toward me with a small smile, but I could see the effort behind it. "Morning, birthday girl," he said, trying to sound cheerful. 18, that's a big one, huh? Yeah, I said, sitting up and stretching. Feels the same so far. He chuckled softly, but it didn't reach his eyes. Well, maybe this will help. He got up and grabbed a small envelope from his bag. He handed it to me, his hand lingering for a second before he let go. Your gift, he said, his tone lighter than his expression. It's something important. I looked at the envelope, its edges slightly worn from being handled. What is it? I asked, glancing up at him. For a moment, his face faltered, and he seemed to be searching for the right words. I want you to wait, he said finally, his voice quieter. Don't open it yet. Keep it sealed until we get to San Francisco. He smiled again, but it was shaky, as though he was trying to hold something back. Promise me, Hannah. I nodded, tucking the envelope carefully into my bag. Okay, I promise. He exhaled, the tension in his shoulders easing just a little. Good, he said, standing up straight and forcing a brighter tone. Now let's hit the road. Birthday breakfast is on me. But even as he tried to sound upbeat, I could see the weight he was carrying. Whatever was in that envelope, it wasn't just a birthday surprise. It was something more. We checked out of the motel and headed to a small diner down the road. My dad ordered pancakes for me, stacking them high with whipped cream and a candle stuck right in the middle. Can't have a birthday without cake, he said with a grin, but his voice wavered just enough for me to notice. I smiled back, trying to match his energy, even though the envelope in my bag felt heavier with every passing minute. The drive that day was quieter than before, the air between us thick with unspoken words. My dad made an effort to keep things light, pointing out random landmarks and playing a mix of oldies on the radio, but I could tell his heart wasn't in it. Every now and then, I'd catch him glancing at me, his jaw tightening like he was gearing up to say something but couldn't. The closer we got to San Francisco, the more I felt the weight of something hanging over us, something he wasn't ready to share just yet. By late afternoon, the city came into view, its skyline outlined against the fading sun. My dad fell silent as we crossed the bridge, the usual hum of his chatter replaced by a deep, almost brooding quiet. I watched him out of the corner of my eye, his grip on the steering wheel tightening as the car weaved through traffic. "We're almost there," he said finally, his voice low. "We'll check into the hotel first." When we pulled into the lot of a modest hotel on the outskirts of the city, he parked and sat there for a moment, staring straight ahead. "You all right, Dad?" I asked, my voice tentative. He nodded quickly, but his eyes told a different story. "Just tired," he muttered. He got out of the car before I could say anything else, grabbing his bag and heading inside. I followed, my heart pounding with the growing sense that whatever he had to say, it was going to change everything. Inside the hotel room, my dad dropped his bag by the door and glanced at his watch. "Get your things settled," he said, his voice lighter than it had been all day. "There's a place I want to take you tonight." I looked at him curiously as I set my bag on the bed. "A place? What kind of place?" He smiled faintly, avoiding my gaze. "Just somewhere special. Trust me, you'll like it." His tone was calm, but I could hear an edge of nervousness. Still, I wanted to believe it was something good. Maybe this was his way of celebrating my birthday after such a strange day. "Okay," I said, shrugging. "Let me freshen up first." As I washed up, I wondered what he had planned. A nice dinner? Maybe a surprise spot my mom used to talk about? The thought made me smile briefly. For a moment, I let myself feel excited, like maybe tonight would be the good memory I'd been hoping for. After I got ready, we headed out into the city. The streets were alive with energy, neon signs flickering against the dusk, and the hum of conversations and traffic filled the air. My dad was quiet as he drove, navigating through unfamiliar roads with a focused expression. "So," I said, trying to lighten the mood, "are you going to tell me where we're going? Or is this part of the surprise?" He glanced at me briefly, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "It's a surprise," he said, his tone softer than usual. "Just sit back and enjoy the ride." I leaned against the window, watching the city blur past us. For a moment, I let myself believe this was a good thing, that he'd planned something special for me, a restaurant, a landmark, maybe even a memory tied to my mom. But as the streets grew quieter and the buildings less polished, I started to feel that familiar knot of unease creeping back in. We eventually turned onto a narrow, dimly lit street, lined with small, worn-down houses. My dad slowed the car, his eyes scanning the numbers on the faded mailboxes. "Here we are," he said softly, pulling over in front of a modest, weathered home with chipped paint and a sagging porch. The engine quieted as he turned it off, and for a moment, the silence in the car was deafening. I frowned, glancing around. "This is it?" I asked, my voice tinged with confusion. "What are we doing here?" I had been expecting a restaurant, a park, something joyful to mark the day, not this. My dad didn't answer right away. He just stared at the house, his fingers gripping the steering wheel tightly again. "I need to tell you something, Hannah," he said finally, his voice trembling. "And it's not going to be easy." My chest tightened as I looked back at him. "What is it, Dad?" I asked cautiously. "You're scaring me." He let out a shaky breath, finally releasing his grip on the steering wheel. "Hannah," he began, his voice low and unsteady. "There's something I've been holding on to for a long time. Something I should have told you before now." He paused, running a hand through his graying hair. "You know, after your mom died, I thought about telling you 100 times, but every time, I talked myself out of it. I told myself it wasn't the right time, or that it would only hurt you more. But the truth is, I was scared. Scared of how you'd look at me after I told you. Scared of what it would mean for us." I stayed silent, my throat tightening as I watched him wrestle with his words. He continued, his voice breaking. You've probably wondered why I wasn't always the best dad to you. Why I was so distant when you were little. Why it felt like I was always angry or disappointed. And I hated myself for that, Hannah. I really did. Because none of it was your fault. Not a single bit of it. He took another deep breath, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. When your mom and I got married, we wanted kids so badly. She talked about it all the time, about what our family would look like, about how much love we had to give. But we couldn't. I couldn't. And that broke something in me. I felt like less of a man, less of a husband, because I couldn't give her the one thing she wanted most. I didn't handle it well. I became bitter, angry, and I shut her out when I should have leaned on her. He glanced at me briefly, his eyes glassy. But your mom, she was strong. She didn't let my anger break her. She wanted a family, and she convinced me that adoption could be just as meaningful as having our own child. She was right, of course. She always was. But I couldn't see it that way at first. I was too wrapped up in my own shame to embrace what we had. His voice wavered, and he looked down at his hands. When we brought you home, I wanted to be the dad you deserved. I really did. But every time I looked at you, I saw my own failure. I saw everything I couldn't give your mom. And instead of facing that, instead of working through it, I took it out on you. I put distance between us because I thought it would protect you from me. But all it did was hurt you. And I hate myself for that. Tears were streaming down my face now, but I didn't say anything. He wasn't done. When your mom died, everything changed. Losing her was like losing the best part of me, and it made me realize how much I had failed you, how much time I had wasted being the kind of father you didn't deserve. That's why I've been trying, Hannah, trying to make it right, even if I know I never really can. He paused again, his hands trembling. And now you're 18. Your mom and I always agreed that when you turned 18 we would tell you the truth. But after she died, I didn't know how to do it on my own. I didn't know if I could find the words, if I could face the questions you'd have. But you deserve to know. You need to know. He looked at me, his eyes full of regret, and something that looked like relief. Hannah, you're adopted. We adopted you when you were a baby. Your mom and I wanted you to know, but we wanted to wait until you were old enough to understand. And now, here we are. I sat there, frozen, the words echoing in my head. Adopted. It was as if the world had tilted on its axis, and I was left trying to find my balance. I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came out. My dad didn't move, his hands still trembling as they rested on the wheel. Hannah, he said softly, his voice breaking the silence. I know this is a lot. I know it's not fair to drop this on you like this. But I couldn't keep it from you anymore. The car felt suffocating, the air thick with everything he'd just said. I couldn't look at him. I couldn't do anything but stare at the house in front of us. The chipped paint, the overgrown lawn, it all blurred as tears filled my eyes. Why? I finally managed to choke out. Why would you wait so long to tell me? And now my mom's gone, and I can't even ask her. I can't even talk to her about it. My voice cracked, and I felt my chest heaving with the weight of it all. My dad's head dropped, his shoulders sagging as though the weight of my words had physically hit him. I know, he said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. I know I should have told you sooner. Your mom wanted to tell you earlier. She thought we should when you were younger, but He sighed, his hands gripping the wheel tightly again. I was a coward, Hannah. I didn't know how to handle it, and after she was gone, I didn't know if I could face it without her. I turned to him, my voice trembling with anger and sadness. And this house? What is this? Why are we here? He swallowed hard, his eyes fixed on the dashboard. This is where your biological mother lives. he said, his words slow and deliberate. We thought you might want to know where you came from, who she is, but that decision is yours to make. I'll support whatever you decide. Before I could say anything, my dad nodded toward the glove compartment. Get the envelope, he said quietly, his voice steadier now but still laced with emotion. I hesitated, but reached over and opened the compartment. There it was, sitting where I had placed it that morning, now carrying a weight I hadn't understood until this moment. Open it, he said again, his eyes fixed straight ahead, avoiding mine. Slowly, I slid my finger under the flap and pulled out a single folded piece of paper. My heart pounded as I unfolded it, my breath catching in my throat when I saw what it was. My birth certificate. My original birth certificate. The name under Mother wasn't my mom's. It was a name I didn't recognize, written in bold, unyielding ink. I stared at it, the words swimming on the page. What is this? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. My dad exhaled deeply, finally turning to look at me, his eyes filled with a mix of sorrow and guilt. It's the truth, Hannah, he said quietly. It's where your story began. I couldn't take my eyes off the certificate. My fingers traced the unfamiliar name under Mother, as a lump formed in my throat. Everything felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life unfold. This can't be real, I said, my voice shaky. Why didn't you tell me before? Why did you and Mom keep this from me? My dad's shoulders slumped, and he let out a long, ragged sigh. We thought we were doing what was best, he said, his voice heavy. Your mom and I wanted to wait until you were old enough to understand. But time kept slipping away, and then she was gone, and I didn't know how to tell you on my own. I thought I'd lose you, Hannah. I was afraid you'd hate me for keeping it from you. As I sat there trying to process the words on the birth certificate, something caught my eye. There was movement inside the house. A shadow passed behind the curtains of the front window, and for a moment, I thought I saw someone glance out. My breath hitched and I instinctively clutched the paper tighter, like it might anchor me in the whirlwind of emotions. Is that? I began, my voice barely above a whisper as I turned to my dad. He nodded slowly, his gaze fixed on the house. That's her, he said quietly. Your biological mother. His words hung in the air, thick and heavy, as I turned back toward the house, my mind racing. 1,000 questions flooded my head, but I couldn't form a single one aloud. I couldn't tear my eyes away from the house. The curtain shifted again, and this time, the figure lingered, their outline just visible against the glow of a dim lamp inside. My chest tightened, and I felt a strange pull, curiosity, fear, anger, all tangled together. What do I do? I whispered, almost to myself. My dad didn't answer right away. He just sat there, his hands resting on the steering wheel, his expression unreadable. It's your choice, Hannah, he said finally, his voice steady but soft. I brought you here because I thought you had a right to know, but whether you want to meet her, that's entirely up to you. Whatever you decide, I'll be here. And now I'm here, sitting in this car with everything I thought I knew about myself turned upside down. My dad's words keep echoing in my head. It's your choice. But how do I even begin to make this decision? On one hand, meeting her, my biological mother, could give me answers to questions I didn't even know I had. Who is she? Why did she give me up? Does she think about me? A part of me feels like I owe it to myself to find out. But on the other hand, what if it's too much? What if seeing her just complicates things even more? My life hasn't been perfect, but it's been mine. I had a mom who loved me with all her heart, and a dad who's finally trying to be the father I've always needed. What if meeting her disrupts all of that? What if she doesn't want to see me, or worse? What if I see her and it doesn't change anything at all? I don't know what to do. This decision feels too big, too overwhelming, and I can't help but wonder if I'm ready to face whatever comes next. And that's why I'm asking you. What would you do in my situation? Would you walk up to that door and take the leap? Or would you drive away and keep moving forward with the life you already have? Please, share your thoughts in the comments. I need all the help I can get. Hey there, did you like the story? If you did, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot and makes sure you won't miss out on more great stories we share here. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.